Hi folks, a big congratulations to you. You have made it to the end of another working week. Well done to you. And I hope you're having a good journey on the way home, or that you're already at home, or that you're even working from home. That'll be even better, wouldn't it? Just going to say the prize draw for this month will be over this weekend. I'm not going to close it off. I was originally going to close it off on the 22nd, which is today, so nobody else could be involved in the draw. But if you want to be involved in the draw, which I will be drawing on Sunday, then simply become a Patreon on the channel, like these lovely people have been doing over the past couple of weeks, and you'll be entered into the prize draw for 2 chances to win £30 worth of free models from our great sponsors over at Composite Games. We'll be doing a little bit more with the goods merchant going forwards. So on our next prizes will be some things from the goods merchant. So if you're listening, Leaf, I will be in touch with you very soon, my friend. And yeah, so if you're in any of these groups here, aside from the legends, because you know they are legends, unless they're already in the backers, you guys will be entered into the prize draw where you will have 2 chances to win a lovely £30 bunts of free models from Composite Games. If you want to help me out, then become a patron or become a channel member, and you'll be entered into those prize draws automatically. And if you want to help me out even further, when you're getting any of your models or little bits and bobs that you need for the hobby, head over to Composite Games and use the promo code Northern Exile in the little doobly-doo when you're doing your checkout. You'll get an extra 5% off of checkout, and you already get 20% off, so that could end up with 25% off of your order from Composite Games. How cool is that? So, let's get started with some hobby nightmares, shall we? So, first of all, G-Man says, "Hello, Mr. Northern, hello. From another man of the North, Canadian." Okay. "My hobby story is how I got into Warhammer and the first few major things I did when I got into the hobby. Also, sorry for any mistake, I'm not super good at writing, no problem. So, I first got into the hobby in mid-2019. I just gotten out of my first long-term relationship. It was 1 year long. Okay. I wanted something to get my mind off of things, so I went to my local hobby shop and asked the owner what was the starter box to Warhammer. I had learned about Warhammer from a friend in Cadets, a youth organisation funded by the military. Yeah, we have a similar thing in the UK. The owner pointed me towards Dark Imperium, so I got that because I thought it looked really awesome. Yeah, do you know what? Dark Imperium, I will say, I'm not just being biased because it's the main one that I sold when I was working at Games Workshop. I sold Dark Vengeance, and I hated it. I didn't like Dark Vengeance as a set. I didn't think it was very good. I just thought the models were really naff and weren't very good. I just didn't like it. But anyway, in terms of Dark Imperium, though, I loved it because not only did they gave you so much stuff that you could make and bend and do whatever you wanted with. I loved the fact that the Marines in the set were not a set chapter. That's one thing that really got bee in my bonnet about Dark Vengeance. You know, not everyone wants to play Dark Angels, and that's just how it is. And yeah, so I really like Dark Imperium. I think it's still one of the best box sets they've ever done. And no, do you know what? It's the best box set for 40k that they've ever done in terms of starter box set. There, I said it. When I got home, I started trying to build it, but only had white glue. Oh, no. So it didn't really work, and gave up because I was a bit depressed from my breakup, and I had to get ready for moving to university. Okay. Yeah, don't use PVA glue. Don't be silly. Later that year, I moved down south to attend university. I was studying history. Oh, good man. The university wasn't really working for me. I was getting really bad anxiety, causing me to not sleep, which caused me to get sick constantly. I also had another breakup happen. This one was only a short-term relationship, but I still felt depressed because of the combination of failing university and the breakup. So I turned to Warhammer again this time. I had a proper glue, and I was able to build my models, and I chose a side in the Dark Imperium box. I picked Death Guard, because I liked the colour green, and I always liked Mortarian's story. Okay. The city I was in had a great hobby shop where, on slower days, the staff would do intro games. I booked an intro game for a Wednesday, which was normally a slower day. I had learned that the hobby shop was putting on a charity event for the holidays for a local children's hospital, so I had something fun to look forward to after I learned how to play. During my intro game, it was Death Guard versus Dark Angels, Deathwing in brackets. The list I made was on paper because I didn't know of Battle Scribe yet, And I made many mistakes because I didn't fully understand the rules. Like, I gave my Plague Marines all melter guns when a squad can only take 3 at max. I had 10, but the employees just let me roll with it because I paid the points for them. That's good of them. The game lasted about 3 turns. I had lost, but I had lots of fun because I thought the game was super cool. Now, for the first major thing I did after learning how to play, it was the charity event where the entire fee was bringing a gingerbread house. Okay. The game was a massive, apocalypse-sized game, just using normal 8th edition rules. Everyone had around 1,500 points. There were around 20 players, 10 on each side. For each table, we used the gingerbread house as terrain that could be targeted for shooting when it ran out of wounds. And the house would meet the toffee hammer. Sorry, models were clicked. Okay, people need to start using full stops because I can't. I find it hard. I get halfway through it's hard to listen to too. I could get halfway through a sentence and it goes on for about 50 words. You know. Anyway, where was I? Okay, so this battle is 1,500 points. There's 20 people and 10 on each side. Brilliant. And for the table, we used the gingerbread house as terrain that players could target for shooting when it ran out of wounds. The house would meet the toffee hammer. Models were cleared away before the explosion. Okay, right. Okay, so you're gonna smash it with you're gonna smash it with the toffee hammer. Okay, cool. My goal was to survive and take out a house. I did both. The way money was raised was through command points that could be bought for $1, and there were mystery boxes that could help whoever's side bought it, and a few other things that helped raise money for the children's hospital. Okay. Okay, I'm finding this hard to read again. Many shout for the children's hospital side when someone was donated. Okay, everybody was celebrating the children's hospital when somebody donated. Okay. The event raised around $2,000 for the hospital. That's great. That's great. That's awesome. The last major thing before Nurgle's Plague was a tournament. I went to, this was in February, so I had now been playing for 4-ish months. So I decided to try my luck at a tournament. I got in for free because someone had to drop out last minute, and the local hobby shop owner knew I was interested in going, so he got me in the opening. Okay. It was a 2-day event held at a hotel/ice rink, not joking, rodeo stables convention centre. Okay. This sounds like a very American thing. Or a rural Canadian thing, I suppose. It was an 80-person event, 5 rounds, 3 the first day and 2 the second. I was playing my trusty Death Guard. My first game was against one of the I'm here to win types, playing Iron Hands, because it was the meta at the time. Yes, it was. I told him I was newer to the game, so he went easy on me, though. He still won the game in the end. He went on to get into the top 10 overall at the tournament. My second game was against an AdMech player who was running triple Vindicator Assassins that took out most of my characters. That really hurt my list, because my Death Guard relied heavily on character buffs. In the end, I lost the game. As well, it also wasn't fun as my first. It wasn't as fun as my first game, because this player wasn't as new player friendly as the first guy. Okay, that's very, very important, and I'm very impressed that there was even a guy at a tournament who would give you the time of day to actually take you along as a new player, you know? Especially if you've gotten to the top 10. But there you go. Right. My final game of the day was against the Tyrannid Swarm. This kind of swarm I knew how to fight because I'd gotten my brother into Warhammer and had gotten him a large Tyrannid army for Christmas that year with the help of some family members, and we had played a few games over the Christmas break. The Tyrannid player The Tyrannid player I played at the tournament was a super nice person to play against. This game I won because I took out his synapse creatures, which led to a massive moral losses, which helped swing the game in my favour. This was great. This was a great way to end the day and the tournament. Okay, brilliant, fantastic. I'm going to leave it there because you and your brother are still into the hobby. That's awesome. I'm finding this hard to read. I don't know why, because if a story has like loads of spelling mistakes, I'm fine with that. It's when there's no commas and full stops that's when I start to struggle, because I'm like, wait, where does your next bit of the story start and the other one ends? You know what I mean? Like it all flows in together. So anyway, really cool story, man. Really enjoyed it. But moving on. Omegon Percy says, "Hello, Governor. I am the guy who told you about not swearing within the first 3 minutes of your YouTube videos in regards to monetization. Thank you for your channel and content. No worries, man. I think I have stopped doing that within the first 3 minutes of videos. I think I have done anyway. My hobby nightmare story is from a hobby I am not sure I've heard about on your channel yet. That being Airsoft. Okay. Right, alright. So, to me, I'm going to get so much shade for this. To me, Airsoft, most of the people I know who do Airsoft are, shall we say, wannabe soldiers. That sounds so bad. But, you know, there's like wannabe soldiers, essentially. I don't want to do soldiers who've done it in the past, and then I've gotten very turned off by it straight away. Because, like, yeah, this is not like combat at all. I'm just going to, like, not do this. Anyway, all power to you, man. All power to you. To those unfamiliar with the hobby or sport, it is essentially a game of tag using replica firearms that fire 6mm plastic BBs that get dressed up with rules and objectives depending on the venue and the crowd. When you are hit, you take out a highly visible red flag and either put it on your head or hold it up. If you don't call your hit, you are cheating. Not important for this story. No cheating in this story. Okay, fair enough. Alright. Brief bio in regards to Airsoft is that I was a national event level planner on a national event level team, and we will play with rules that allow for a greater degree of role-playing and military simulation. See what I mean? Told you. We were trained by members of our team with military and police experience. Okay. Most of us had night vision goggles and infrared lasers. Lasers you can only see through the night vision goggles. And we're all trained and equipped to perform our roles in the squad. And event organisers would grant us opportunities for special missions that less trained /organised /equipped squads may struggle with. 24 to 30 hour long events with 200 to 400 players were not unusual at this time. The only breaks are ones you give yourselves, which can affect the course of the game if too many people do so. My team were the kind of guys who would take breaks on the field with some squad members on Overwatch, so we could hold the battle line or an objective while we take shifts, resting and reloading empty magazines. We only left the field when we ran out of bandages our medic would use to revive our wounded players if we were below 20% ammo capacity for the whole squad. Okay. So this very much seems like a buy-in kind of a thing. It'd be very easy if people just come in and just cheat, you know what I mean? And they say, just forget that wound, it's fine, you know, that sort of a thing. So I'm quite glad that you were able to get a really good hobby going in there. But it also shows as well, even things with Warhammer 40,000, is most of these hobbies, the most important thing is deciding who your opponents are and if they want to play ball or not. It's pretty much like the main thing. Anyway, the particular story that I want to share is what I consider to be one of the finest moments I ever had playing a game with my first serious team. I call it the Attack at Dawn, and it took place in a US Army base, MOUT, Military Operations in Urban Terrain, training facility. Essentially a mock city used by Army personnel to simulate the terrain warfare they were engaging in at the time. Also important is the rule that only 2 weapons per squad may be designated semi-automatic weapons, or SAW for short. Have box magazines, 2,500 rounds, and fire full automatic but not inside a building, and they had to be replicas of the firearms used for that role in real militaries, such as the M249, the M240, or the RPK. Everyone else had a rifle, which could only have a certain type of magazine called a mid-cap, holds 100 rounds, and they only fire on semi-automatic. Our squad would run rifle and SAW platforms with compatible magazines, so all of our full magazines would be interchangeable, and we could share them when we run out of ammo. We also carried smoke grenades, trainer flashbangs, and had imported dried pea grenades from the UK, which are small pyrotechnic with a cardboard shell that would explode and scatter dried peas like a fragmentation grenade. Oh, that's cool. After 16 hours of constant fighting, our squad was one of the few who hadn't taken a significant break on the field. By the time the other SAW gunner and I were down to less than 1 full box of magazines each, and decided to reload to continue operational effectiveness. This guy is fucking hilarious. This fucking SAS guy over here. Our squad was part of a platoon of similar teams we had trained with in the past. So when we decided to have one fire team of 4, myself included, resting and reloading, the other fire team and our squad leader went with the rest of the platoon to clear buildings. We got to work securing the second floor of a building with an entrance that led directly to the stairs with the first floor entrance elsewhere. It was 4 AM and still dark, so only the most determined and best equipped players were out fighting, as the game staff constantly ran propane cannons and a track of urban warfare sounds in the background, which included dog barking and sirens, shrieks and wails of despair to ramp up the stress. Fucking hell. No sleeping through that. We took turns on guard duty while we reloaded, prioritising the saw weapons, as they took more time and were the most important for providing cover for squad and platoon movement. When we had finished reloading, we took turns taking naps, with full face protection on waiting for our squad mates to return. When dawn came, myself and the other gunner were on guard. The street our building was on had become the front line of this side of the battlefield, and it was quiet compared to where we knew our buddies were 5 to 6 blocks away. Wow, that is a big place. 5 to 6 blocks away? Jesus. It was then, as we peeked through the gaps in the shutters, that we saw the enemy stacking on the sides of the buildings on the other side of the street. We had our lights off, so they did not know we were watching them as we started to see multiple heads peeking around multiple corners to check if it was clear. It was at this time I kept watch and told my buddy to wake the others quietly and let them know the enemy were massing for an attack and to get ready to hold the door to the stairs leading up to us. I will never forget how quickly and smoothly we prepared as we picked our angles to best lay down heavy fire on the advance as they exposed their flank to us. The enemy crossed the road. We let them and they proceeded to stack up on the buildings on our side of the street and push to the block beyond us. When the other gunner and I had 2 to 3 squads fully exposed to our cones of fire, we let loose and levelled at least 40 enemy players in less than 10 seconds. As the remainder scrambled to cover, we could only open the shutters just enough to fire through, and we would leave that window after a 1 to 1.5 second burst to keep up a position at another, making it difficult for them to hit us, while we could fire bursts that could take out groups or pin them in cover. The medic and fire team leader held the door, keeping them stacked up just outside and levelling them as they attempted to breach the door. Our 4-man fire team kept at least 100 players occupied on that corner for over 40 minutes. We kept it up as long as we could, popping out fragmentation grenades to clear the doorway and walls when we knew that we were against it. At one point, I remember ducking out the window above the door and firing 6 shots with my pistol with my offhand, each hitting one guy who was stacked up ready to breach the door, and then ducking back in before a squad somewhere else fired at the shutters as I closed. The other gunner and I were constantly repositioning, looking through the cracks and picking when to fire burst at the largest target concentrations, so we would get more than one every time we peeked out. This tactic kept the enemy watching windows we would no longer be at, only for us to appear at another and engage a different unit altogether. It was the closest feeling to being a Space Marine I will ever have, as our small fire team seemed invincible until we ran out of medic bandages and were picked off. I was one of the last 2, and we were eventually outflanked when the enemy had found another way to the second floor and squeezed through a small gap in the wall to get to us. When we were all sat with our red flags on our heads, the guys on the enemy team were dumbfounded that only 4 of us had caused them so many problems, and were able to hold a coordinated offensive by about half their total forces. I know it is a bit long, but it's my favourite hobby story to tell. Any commentary on the topic or how I wrote it would be appreciated, as I would someday translate my tactical knowledge to writing 40k books. Cheers. Well, that's really cool. It's really cool that you're taking your knowledge of tactics and all that, and you're going into 40k. I think that'll serve a lot of people really well. Have you been in the military? That's something that I need to talk about, because you do talk about it like you have been. I know some people in Airsoft have. Just like every single... You're like in Warhammer 40,000, where we have these like neckbeardy types who nobody really likes. Pervs, kiddie fiddlers, things like that. Airsoft have the same kind of thing, but with people who think that they're in the SAS when really they're just Dave from accounts. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're just a nobody, you know, and yeah, it's men playing at war sort of a thing. But there are actual people who know what to do about, and this sounds like one of them groups where, this sounds like one of those people, one of those groups where they know what they're doing, sort of a thing. But yeah, that's really cool. I really like the way it was written, man. I think you should go on and try and write as much as you can, because I didn't find that hard to read at all. So, it shows that I'm not a bit of a retard. I can actually read, and my eyes do work. So, Duke Leto says, and he's back again. This is his third story in a row. Pretty awesome. He says, "Greetings, Hobby Nightmare enthusiasts. Greeting Northern. I hope you're finding a way to stay cool." Well, to be honest with you, man, it is currently, what's the current? It's currently 17 degrees. Very pleasant. It's been quite cloudy the past couple of days. So this heat wave that people are going on about was here for 2 days. 2 days, and that was it. It was gone. Anyway. I will often use this excuse with my wife to go paint models in the basement because it's too hot. Ah, good on you. You have a basement? Where are you? US? We don't have basements in the UK most of the time. This will probably be my last nightmare story, honestly. I don't have a lot of bad memories about this hobby. My hope is that you are running a little short on submissions only because we are collectively all having more fun than not. No, I've got quite a few. But, like, you know, keep sending them in because I love reading them and they will all get read out eventually. Anyway, my topic is not a specific horror story, but rather a general nightmare I'm guessing that we have all faced, and that is finding compatible players. I'm a 42-year-old working professional with a family and an old house. The type of player I am looking for is likely different to the next guy. I agree 100% with you that the biggest variable in this hobby is your opponent. Add to that an extra difficulty in trying to align game interests. With that in mind, the one thing that really blows my mind is, how in the world are we this far into the 21st century, there is not a universal wargame friend finder app? You know, something that every gamer would want to join to find players in the local area. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but as far as I know, there is no app or website that does this. No, there is a meetup group app, but there's no real one for just the hobby, from what I can see. Anyway, I just can't believe nobody can figure this out, how to monetize something like this, either with ads or small subscription fees. Imagine the potential if even 50% of the world's wargamers, card gamers, and role players were all registered at the same platform designed to foster face-to-face meetings. Well, man, if you're looking for a business opportunity, I think you've just stumbled across one yourself. Note, I believe a YouTuber, Uncle Atom, and the Game 4 podcast was going to create such an app, but put it on hold due to COVID. And he still uses that excuse to this day, so I've lost hope there. Also, I know what people are going to say. Just go to your local hobby store. Well, I've tried that, and it blows for various reasons that I'm not going to get into here. Nevertheless, I would like to share a solution that has worked for me, and perhaps some of you. A while back, I posted the best pictures of my terrain and models on my town's local Facebook page. You know, the same one that you likely have in your hometown, where people post about lost cats and how much laundry they have in that day. Dude, you outed yourself as a wargamer? That is a ballsy move. You better hope you never get divorced, because you're never getting laid in that neighbourhood again. I posted pics of my Necromunda gangs and some great industrial terrain. I knew that the grandmas were going to freaking love it. Ah, I see. Chasing the older women, eh? Good. Anyway, I mentioned that I'd been running a demo game at our local library on an upcoming Thursday night at 7 PM. Kids were welcome as well. The library, luckily, has a few private meeting rooms that can be reserved for free. So my idea was that a public meeting place is less intimidating. And 7 PM on a weekday is good enough time that most people are available. The last trick in the book was to actually bring my young sons along who knew how to play the game. This lowered the threshold even more. Lo and behold, we had several dads my age come out of the woodwork. Some had played Warhammer in the past, others were role players that had never tried tabletop wargaming before. Some eventually brought their kids to assist or watch. We now meet once a month and even started our own local Facebook group, which we hope to grow. Anyway, one final bit of advice that I want to stress to everyone is to never sell the models and armies that you worked so hard on if you can avoid it. The money is never really worth it, and you will thank yourself later. Cheers, Northern, and stay cool. Yeah, I will agree with that. Yeah, if you've spent a lot of time on your models, the most heartbreaking thing ever is having to sell them, you know. I'm fully aware that some of you may be in financial jeopardy or things like that, and you may need to sell them, but, you know, I honestly do feel that, you know, you need to treasure these things that you've got. Absolutely treasure these things that you've got, that you've spent your time and money and everything else on, to make sure that you're having a good time in the hobby. You know, if you can avoid selling them, don't sell them. Like, I agree. That is a really cool suggestion as well, by the way, for doing local Facebook groups and things like that. I would say it's very ballsy of you to just go out there and say, but do you know what? If you're living in America, especially suburban America, people are a lot more accepting. I noticed that quite a lot, is that, when I was in a bar or something in suburban America, and if I brought up 40k or something, people would sit there and listen, and even like middle-aged wives would be like, that sounds so interesting, and I'm like, yeah, it is, like, wow, like, I never knew you could do stuff like that. That's amazing. Like, is it cheap? And I'm like, no, it's not cheap, but it's cool, and I like doing it, and you explain your hobby to people, and they will sit there and listen. So I'm guessing there are certain places in the world where this wouldn't really work. For those, I would say, create a Facebook group with you and your friends, and try and spread it around as much as you can, but make it wargaming only, you know what I mean? Like don't just, like, post it somewhere. But yeah, good suggestion, especially if you're living in an area that is, going to be quite nice to you, We have a very interesting one next by Secret Muslin. And I've been sitting on this for a while because it is a response to my gatekeeping and 40k video, and I think it may be a response to certain Space Wolfy things I've said in the past too. So, let's read it, shall we? To Northern Exile. As a response to your latest video on gatekeeping and 40k, and specifically about the section regarding people trying to ruin the hobby by trying to dilute the setting and its themes, the non-fans trying to turn 40k into anything but 40k, and their specific grievances against the setting, I wanted to address a specific point, or points, and add on to them. One of the main reasons why I think it is foolish to deem the Primarchs to be problematic for being mostly white, European-looking men, is that 40k can be viewed in two primary ways. One, a science fiction story, and a distinctly European fantasy story. Number two. While 40k is a science fiction setting taking place in a galaxy where humanity has colonized the stars for tens of thousands of years, thus resulting in many of our current ethnicities, assuming no bizarrely ethnically focused disasters occur between our current humanity and mass colonization of space in the 40k verse, being present throughout humanity's realm, including many ethnicities we've never seen before, since human races are a result of adaptations to environmental factors, with many planets in 40k having radically different environments to Earth. Thus, it would be logical to see a variety of ethnicities be present in the story. However, the setting, storytelling, and themes of 40k are also distinctly European form of fantasy. The Imperium of Man, as a whole, is largely themed after the Roman, Byzantine, and Holy Roman Empires, which we know of as are largely European, with occasional major and dramatic interactions with North Africa, the Middle East, and Asia, such as Roman North Africa, Carthage, and the Punic Wars, the Crusades, the Huns, the Mongol invasions, the Ottoman takeover of Constantinople, etc. Anyhow, the Primarchs are primarily active during the most fundamental events of the Imperium's history, the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy, which set in motion all of the conditions of the current Imperium. Okay, so I'm going to jump in there. I take issue with the fact that the people look at the Imperium and they say, it's clearly Northern European, it's clearly this, it's clearly that. One thing that I think, the main strength of Warhammer 40,000 for me, and I think what Games Workshop are more delighted with, is that they've hit on this intangible thing that is Warhammer 40,000. I don't think you can look at the Imperium and say, it's based on this, it's based on that. At least not in the same way that you can look at the Empire from the old world, from Warhammer, and say, this is the Holy Roman Empire with some magic thrown and steampunk thrown in, right? Because that's not what the Imperium is. The Imperium is too vast to be categorized like that. Now, does it have certain trappings of the cultures that you mentioned? Sure. Does it have certain nods and leans in certain directions with some of its armies in the lore? Sure. Yeah, some of them are very European or Teutonic or whatever. But for me, for the most part, the Imperium is a mess, right? A glorious, lovely, amazing mess where you can find whatever you want in there as well, you know? And that's why I think it's really cool. That's why I would kind of stand up for people if they say, you know, what you seem to be saying is that, you know, it's quite natural that most people in the Imperium are white. I would take issue with that. I don't think it's natural at all. I think it's the opposite. Now, if I'm strawmanning here, feel free to like knock me on the head and say that's not what I meant. And I'll freely admit that that's not what you meant. I might have misunderstood. But to me, the Warhammer 40,000 universe has limitless scope for whatever you want in it, unless the universe specifically says that something isn't possible. Female Space Marines, for instance, we're told they are not possible, and that we don't need female Space Marines. We already have them. They're called Sisters of Battle, right? And they look much better than most Space Marines anyway. That's, you know, and that's what we mean when we're talking about these sorts of things. So, moving on. On specifically the Horus Heresy, it is basically Paradise Lost in space, an epic written by a European man based on an early European understanding of the Christian religion. Characters and groups in 40k are themed after figures, groups, and archetypes of European history, or European understandings of foreign figures such as Jagatai Khan and his white scars representing the Mongols. Like, for example, the Lion and his Dark Angels, my favourite personal legion, essentially being King Arthur and his mythos, with the culture of Caliban also being heavily based on European legends of dragon-slaying knights. Good point, yeah, with you on that one. Rebute Gilliman is a combination of Julius and Augustus Caesar, but in space. Ultramar is Rome at its heights of prosperity and culture, and the Ultramarines are based on what we view as traditional Roman legionaries. Okay. Russ and his Space Wolves both represent the real-life Vikings and their mythology, as Russ can be seen as the Thor to the Emperor's Odin, and the process of becoming a Space Marine is viewed as like joining the Einrahar in Fenrisian culture. Rogel Dawn and the Imperial Fists and family are Space Marine Germanics, with the default Fist Legion and chapter acting like the Prussians, the Black Templars and Space Teutonics, albeit with the name of the Templars and the cross of the Hospitallers. And some have said that the Crimson Fists are based on Habsburg-era Spain. Really? Habsburg-era Spain? Crimson Fists? I mean, it's a stretch, but alright. Not to mention names based in German culture and folklore, such as Sigismund and Fafnir. The Blood Angels have Italian names and have artistic sculpted details such as musculature on their armour involving the works of the Italian Renaissance, and how many of them are focused on depictions of the human body and its most ideal forms. Sanguinius is a literal angel, and his role in the story is to be Archangel Michael and Jesus Christ to the Emperor's God. This is all fitting in quite nicely. The Iron Warriors, with the various Greek names for units and equipment, their sheer brutality, and their home planet, being called Olympia, are themed after the Spartans. That's a stretch. That's a stretch. I will say this, right? Perturabo and the Iron Warriors never really fit the Greek aesthetics to me. Just, you know, if you're going to do like a Greek legion, do a Greek legion. I never really liked the fact that Perturabo and the Iron Warriors had Greek names, and that they had Olympia as their home world and shit like that. Never really fit for me. I would find something else for the Iron Warriors to do. In fact, I'd probably link them better to what's that Guard Legion? What's that Guard? Imperial Guard Regiment. The guys with the shovels. What the fucking hell are the names? Trench guys. Oh my god, I've got Valhalla stuck in my head. I don't know why. War Decay, Trench, Warfare. You're all screaming at me, I know. What are the names? What are the names? Oh my god. Anyway, moving on. I don't know why it's gone from my head. That's going to absolutely... Krieg! Got it. Death Corps of Krieg. Thank you. Oh my god, that was going to drive me insane. So yeah, I would actually link them into them. I'd link them into more of a World War I aesthetic, but as a Legion. Because they do trench warfare, dude. That's what they do. So yeah, that doesn't really fit for me, to be honest with you. It never has done either. The Night Lord's tactics and imagery are heavily based on Vlad the Impaler and his brutality and his association with bats and vampires. I've even heard that Night Lords had Eastern European voices and audiobooks to reference Vlad's Transylvania. Yeah, they do. They do. So the best audiobooks for me, the best 40k audiobooks, are the Night Lord's audiobooks, because the reader of those audiobooks is absolutely sensational. He's amazing. He is an absolutely brilliant reader. And each and every Night Lord has a different voice, but they all have the same, you know, we all talk like this, and we are very Eastern European, and we are very, you know, that's the kind of sound, you know. And yeah, they sound like vampires, which I really, but they're not like, I was kind of thinking it was going to sound like, you know, the Count from fucking Sesame Street, but they actually sound very, very, vampiric. I do like them. Yeah, it is good. Anyway. The Death Guard Legion was, by the way, that's the Night Lords trilogy, by the way. So the three Night Lords games, the three Night Lords audiobooks. Get them on Audible. They're really good. The Death Guard Legion was partially based on European understandings of the horrors of World War I due to their use of ethically dubious weapons and grinding attritional warfare. Maybe, but that's not a culture. That's more of an understanding of warfare. You know, we're like in many essays, we're getting away from the point here. We need to like bring it back to what our point is. Speaking of Death Guard, Nurgle can be seen as a reflection of how the Plague collectively traumatized Europe and its folklore and history. Okay. The God Emperor and the Chaos Gods are a reflection of the struggle between the holy forces of God and the unholy forces of Hell. And before Gilliman came back to try and reform the Imperium, the general overarching theme surrounding the Imperium was decay, political and social decay, modelled after the three aforementioned real-life European empires and how they eventually fell. Thus, since 40k is a very much European hit story based on European ideas, it would make perfect sense for the major figures and personages who drove the plot and set the foundations of the Imperium's history, the Imperium's very own great men of history, to look traditionally European in order to evoke the imagery and ideas of European history and mythological figures as to reinforce the general tone and feeling for the Imperium. Okay, so in terms of the Primarchs, yeah, I get that completely. Yeah, fine. I don't have a problem with that. My problem is when we start saying that, you know, different people looking different in the Imperium don't deserve a place. I don't think that's what you're saying now. I think you've actually gone on from that point, but I would still be very, very, very careful about how this point is construed, you know. And to pivot the idea of the fantasy story set in the future space, I also don't particularly care for the argument for female Space Marines. The idea of the Adeptus Astartes and Adeptus Sororitas is that they evoke images of historical monastic knighthoods and nun-sisterhoods, respectively, which, as we know, were rather gender segregated to say the least. And to introduce women as a major part of the primary fighting forces of the Space Marines, and men as a major part of the fighting forces of the Sisters of Battle, is to ruin the thematic immersion of the two groups. That I completely agree with, and that is the rest. That is the end of your essay there. So yeah, really good, man. Like I agree with it for the most part. I really agree with how you broke down how certain legions are certain things in history. The early ones were the strongest, but then when we get to the Iron Warriors and things later on, it starts getting down and getting a little bit weaker there. But yeah, I see your point, you know. I don't get why. I mean, Vulcan isn't white, he's black, you know. But as you say, you know, he's black because he was brought up on a world where everybody's black because it's so hot and so arid and so, you know, deathly heat-induced, you know? So, I agree with you for the most part. I just think we need to be careful if we're saying, you know, well, of course, all Space Marines are white. Well, of course, all people in the Imperium are white. Well, of course, no, and that's getting a bit too far. I think it was leaning into that in the earlier parts of the letter there, but later on, we're doing okay. Anyway, right, we're on 40 minutes. Oh my god. Stobby says, adding to the Space Wolves video. In reply, hi North, hope this is the correct place to submit things. I've been watching the channel and really enjoying it for a bit ever since I started the hobby about 6 months ago, on and off with school. As you can probably guess, I'm a Space Wolves player. I just wanted to add a bit to your video about the Space Wolves. When I created my chapter of Space Wolves, I was picking between choosing Raven Guard and Space Wolves, and ended up choosing Space Wolves, drawn to the colour of chalk blue and Bjorn the Fell-Handed, the dreadnought who was fighting in the Great Crusade era. When I got the Space Wolf Codex, I realised that they had 12 companies. For my personal headcanon, I decided that each of the companies was about the size of a chapter, as they had no successors, and the one they did fell to chaos. I picked one called the Sons of Morkai, as they are the ones that had scouts, kinda, like the Raven Guard, as I really like the Phobos armour. This led them to be similar to the ones you suggested in your video, with them going out on missions with small amounts of wolves to kill specific things. Yeah, those are the Void Wolves, weren't they? Here are some things that I would like changed for the Space Wolves that I made in my headcanon, and some reasons for specific things. Number 1, too many wolves. I think this opinion is shared but with some other people, as they called everything as called a wolf, as they have their own language and they want they have many different words that translate back into wolf. Yeah. Horus Heresy. I also think the Space Wolves were dumb during the Horus Heresy, so no comment here. Month of Shame. Okay, this is the big one. This is where we might differ a little bit. For those of you who don't know, the Month of Shame is when the Space Wolves and the Grey Knights and the Inquisition came to blows. Going with my headcanon, early, where the Space Wolves are 12 companies of chapter size each, I think this would make more sense why they were able to go toe-to-toe with the Inquisition and the Grey Knights, as they would have 12 times their number. With the Grandmaster being killed, think of it because of two things. One, Logan Grimnar was able to run in Terminator armor, which shocked everybody, including the Grandmaster. Two, Logan Grimnar's axe is from, I think, a Khornite Demon Prince or Bloodthirster, so this could have some impact on the psychic abilities of the Grandmaster. So maybe preventing them, that's a stretch. Also, going along with that, Khornite axe, I think it would be really cool if Logan Grimnar was eventually corrupted by chaos, similar to how Fulgrim was. Maybe making a Space Wolf Heresy something like the Blood Ravens had. That would be really interesting. That would be really interesting. I mean, what you're suggesting here, Stobby, are all very interesting things that I think would make the Space Wolves very much more relatable. But we can't have these things because Space Wolf players, unlike yourself, will start squeeing and, you know, threatening to shave their beards off because we're harming their little puppies, essentially. You know, it's never going to change. We're never going to get anything interesting with the Space Wolves ever. It just is what it is. You know, their main flaw is that they're too awesome. That's it. You know, we're not going to get anything around that. He says Magnus's attacks in Fenris and successor chapters. The Space Wolves before Primaris did not have any successor chapters, as their gene seed is hard to replicate, and the successors they did have fell to chaos. This led me to thinking that Space Wolves were slowly dying out. I thought this was kinda cool, similar to the Eldar, as each loss was a big thing. This was a struggle for them until they had a Wolf Priest that could make successors until he was killed, and his research destroyed by Magnus on one of his attacks in Fenris. But then Primaris were added, so that kind of took all that away. Yeah, this is the thing. I'm going to just come away from your story there, because a few of your other points are pretty good, but I want to keep them to myself. Here's the thing. Every single time Games Workshop start giving the Space Wolves depth, they completely undermine that depth, because they're just so terrified of upsetting Space Wolf players, because there's a lot of them. And they tend to be very possessive of their army, and they don't want anything bad to happen to them. If you're insecure about your masculinity, go and play Space Wolves. That's all I've got to say. Like, if you're not very secure in yourself, and you need an ego boost and easy wins, Go and play Space Wolves. You'll love it. Anyway, Wind88 says, "Hi again, Exile. Had another hobby role-playing nightmare that luckily ended on a high note. This happened some time ago, when we had a gaming group at the university that met nearly every Friday at a member's house. We played a variety of war games, role-playing, etc. One night a month had been designated as Comic Role-Play Night, where we were playing Champions, a role-playing game of comic superheroes. We had a couple of guys in our group that were neck-deep in loving this kind of game. For me, I didn't really love the game at first, but it was the only game that night, and I didn't want to rain on the comic guys' parade by not participating. I'd been playing a character left behind by another player who never came back. The character was called Beast. A fast, uber-strong character that was funny, wild-looking, and not very intelligent. Things like speech and the concept of good versus evil were things he struggled with. But I loved it, as I could honestly roleplay him into some interesting situations that made our comic book guys squirm. I and another brother nerd, Tim, had girlfriends, and Mikey, Tim's squeeze, and Carla, my squeeze. Okay. Wait, Mikey? Mickey? Mickey's a girl? Michaela? Okay, never mind. So yeah, you and Tim have girlfriends. Excellent. They would wargame with you, but mentioned that they would like to try role-playing at some point. Our game master honestly wanted them to participate, so as to enable his girlfriend Sarah to also start playing. All right, it's always harder for a woman to say no when there's other girlfriends doing it as well. Our game master thought it would be a great idea to secretly roll some characters for the two girlfriends. Added Sarah and a non-player character to form a team. He then met with them secretly and coached them on how the rules and combat worked, beefed them up up to about 20% better than our characters, and set his female hit squad up to trap us. We had no idea they would be playing with us, and we and our characters had no idea they would be gunning for us. An evil female femme fatale team versus our superhero group, the Sentinels. Little did the GM know the shit show he was about to create. I think he did know, man. I think this is kind of obvious. This is going to be good. Our Sentinels had an Iron Man clone, Gamatar, the Nuclear Man. Tim played a Spider-Man clone, My Beast, and one other character I couldn't remember. So everyone sat down at the table, and the girlfriends pretend they want to just watch how our game went. This mysterious female team arrives in Comic Land and is extremely evasive about why they are there or what they want. Then the shit hits the fan. The evil female attacks us, expecting an easy win. We fought bravely and teamed up on them as best we could. One went down, then two, then all female characters were knocked out cold. Tim announces he is walking over to his girlfriend's character, who is a female version of him, still unconscious. All of the girlfriends are a bit uneasy, asking him what he intends to do. He states that he is going to lift up her neckline, and imitates that he is going to take a look down her top. Oh no. Oh no. And even if this is your girlfriend, this is fucking creepy. All the women on the table are not happy. No shit, Sherlock. Calling out his name to stop, and visibly enraged that they are all about to roleplay a groping or worse. The look Sarah gave our game master froze him in a millisecond. The game master has really screwed himself at this point, and it goes into vapor shock. Tim is enough of a nerd to be aware of the problem he is creating with his character's actions. Tim is enough of a nerd not to be aware of the problem he is creating with his character's actions. Luckily, I was. I announced that Beast was walking up behind the Spidey thing, took some time to wind up, and as he was still distracted, lay him out cold with a haymaker punch. Tim protested that he would have seen it coming, but the GM recovered sufficiently to rule out that my to-hit roll was on target, was strong enough to knock Spidey out. And what did I do next? Role-playing perfectly, Beast lifted up the sod we fought on as if it was a carpet, stuffed the Spidey thing under said carpet, Jesus Christ. So it'd be the sod of earth. Right, okay. Spidey lifted up the sod of earth we fought on as if it was a carpet, stuffed the Spidey thing under said carpet, grabbed the unconscious Black Widow character, and super leaped away into the woods. He laid out the Black Widow character on some branches in a tree and sat next to her, waiting for her to recover. When she awoke, he recanted what had happened with his minimal language skills and demanded she owe Beast cheeseburger for saving him from Spidey thing, which she gratefully paid. Our real-life female players let out a sigh of relief, and the crisis was avoided. To this day, I don't know what Tim would have done if my character hadn't stepped in, but for Tim and Michaela, it was merely a speed bump from which they recovered. They had been happily married for 20 plus years and have 2 kids. Though he wasn't the brightest or strongest, on that day, Beast was indeed a superhero. Cheers, Wind88. I'm not sure. I know there's... I'm betting this was like a decade ago or even more. Probably more. Probably like 15 years ago, because in this day and age, you do that to a group of women at a gaming table and you are like every sort of ist known to man. Yeah, you're done, my friend. So, anyway, that was a cool story to end on. My voice is starting to crack. I love you all a long time. I will see you again on Monday, on Sunday actually, for our prize draw. But I will see you on Monday. Have a really good weekend. And please continue supporting Composite Games. We'll be giving you more info on the goods merchant on Monday. Use the promo code NorthernExile down below, 5% off at checkout. For all of your hobby needs, I love you all. Have a really good weekend. And thanks. Have a good one. Cheers.